Welcome to Introductory Human Physiology. We're about to start our course, and I just wanted to share a few bits of information about the course with you before we actually begin. The first is that the course objectives are going to be that you will acquire the terms and concepts of specific areas in physiology. And secondly, we want to develop an integrated framework that you can relate structure to function, and that you'll be able to analyze clinical data and physiological data, and then be able to predict the body's response to change. And lastly, we're going to use homeostasis and control as themes. This physiology is a course which looks at it's an integrative science. It looks at the function of the individual organ systems and how they then work with each other to maintain the life of the organism. And because of its integrative personality, it is one of the most difficult of the human science studies. And because of this, we decided to teach the course from concepts. And the specific concepts that we're going to be dealing with are listed here. And the ones that we're going to be talking about in the first week of the course are going to be control systems and homeostasis and cell-cell communication. And then as we go through the organ systems, the individual organ systems, we'll come back to specific general principles which apply to that particular organ system. The course format is going to be that we will have each week lecture videos. These lecture videos are 10 to 20 minutes in length, and you can have anywhere from 4 to 6 of them per week. Secondly, we're going to have in-video quizzes or questions which are to help you to review the material and then to retain the material. These are not graded. Thirdly, we have lecture notes, and the lecture notes actually will help to fill out some of the information that we're giving through the videos. And they're also giving it to you from a different format or a different perspective. And so we feel that these may be very helpful to you. And the fourth, we have problem sets. The problem sets are not graded. The problem sets are for you to test your own level of learning and to see whether or not you're right on point as you're going through the individual organ systems and throughout the entire course. Lastly, we have an interactive forum where you can then exchange information with other individuals who are working within this particular course, and you can then also address specific questions to us, the instructors. We will be monitoring the forum. It would be very difficult for us to interact with you directly by email because there are so many of you. So we ask that you use the forum to voice your different questions and also your opinions about the course and what you would hope to get from the course. Lastly, we have exams. There are 3 multiple choice exams, and they're going to test the application of the basic science principles. They are not going to be testing rote memorization. We are going to give you data, and we want you to be able to interpret the data. These are closed book exams. The students that are taking the exams are bound by the Coursera Honor Code. It's to test your knowledge, not the knowledge of someone else. Each exam can be taken only once, and you will have 90 minutes to complete the exam once it is started. The sum of 3 exam grades will determine your final grade in the course, and we're asking for an overall average of 70% to be a pass or better. And lastly, we are going to give letters of accomplishment to those who request it for those who have successfully completed the course. So we hope that you'll enjoy the course. We welcome you again to Introductory Human Physiology. I hope that it will be helpful for you and that you'll enjoy this. Bye-bye.